back. So it's only Tuesday, so we're still talking back to school. I think we might be talking this for the next couple of weeks, but it's always good to hear from the man himself, Mr. Martin Lumpkin, the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association. Welcome to the show, Mr. Lumpkin. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning, Mr. Haynes. Thank you for having us this morning.
Of course.
Yes, it's Tuesday, bright and early.
One of the things that we spoke about when we were planning this show is that it's always great to have you on the first day of school, but the first day of school hasn't happened yet. You know, because it happens 6 o'clock in the morning, nobody goes. So on the second day of school is when we can talk about what happened yesterday. So what is your initial assessment of how the first day of school went in the 2025-26 academic year?
Yes, and the reports we have gotten thus far, and I should say lack of reports as well too, which is always a good sign. We have gotten the indication that school will reopen as smoothly as it can. There are a couple of schools. There's one school that, by our reports, did not reopen, which is the Cedros Secondary School, which we plan to visit this morning. And the Toko Secondary School had to be closed early yesterday, and we understand that it will be closed today due to an electrical issue emanating out of the school. And as such, they will be closed today. We're not sure if they'll be closed tomorrow. But by and large, we have to congratulate the Ministry of Education and by extension, the Honorable Minister of Education, because we understand up to Sunday, work was being done, if not completed, at least brought to an advanced state such that the schools were not under threat of not opening. And I want to say this as well, even during the vacation, we were in contact with the Honorable Minister to give him some of the assessments and feedback that we would have gotten. And we were confident that he would address it with his technocrats at the Ministry of Education.
For sure.
The only thing yesterday was the traffic. That volume of traffic yesterday morning, because of some issue, I think, just after the Beatum on the roadway, which would have affected. We didn't get any report from our members, but we would have found it that it would have affected them, because we have our members living in the East-West corridor, some going into the Port of Spain area to work, or even along the East-West corridor. That traffic was crazy.
It was insane. It was one of the few times I was glad that I get to host this show this early morning, because I was already here and I passed all of it. But that was nothing. There was nothing that we could do about that one. And I did start the show by saying that WASA has been working on that situation. So hopefully by tomorrow everything should be smooth as our roads can be. But you are echoing a lot of sentiments that the NPTA president, Walter Stewart, would have said yesterday in terms of this ability to fix all of these schools and get it done. Did that extra week really make a big difference? Because that was one of the reasons we were given. It's like, okay, well, the length of the school term, we're going to balance it out, but we're going to take that extra week and fix what needs to be fixed. Did that really make that big of a difference? What do you think is different between this year and previous years?
This year, the availability of funds. What we understand is that the ministry and the Honorable Minister was able to get funding to address the infrastructural issues at schools. In previous years, the reason for not addressing, and they were only dealing with emergency cases that will actually shut down the school. They were dealing with those, so it's sewer, electrical, roofing, etc. But in this case, they were able to touch quite a bit from the indication from the ministry, over 700 schools plus, because there were those on the emergency list that was not on that particular list. And the extra week, yes, did impact on the completion of some of the projects. From what we understand, some have to be done, and that has been the case in the past, that they would take weekends or after school hours to address some of the other areas that were not completed. Yes, the extra week did give the ministry some more time to complete the projects.
I do want to talk about the police officers in schools. Your initial assessment of what you would have seen yesterday, I'm sure you would have walked along with some of these schools, maybe met with someone. What are you hearing on the ground about how this is working so far?
Well, unfortunately, I was not able to visit schools yesterday. I was actually, and congratulations to St. Augustine Secondary on their 50th anniversary. So I attended that function. We are still to get some feedback from our members. So for me to say what is the impact thus far, I cannot give a true picture at this time, but during the week, we will get an assessment of what is taking place at the nation's schools, that the police officers, law enforcement officers are being assigned to schools. We are even not sure of the schools that have the presence of these law enforcement officers. There is a meeting on Thursday with stakeholders, and we anticipate that the Ministry of Education will give us further information and update in terms of that particular initiative by the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Homeland Security.
I don't know if you saw today's front page, or if you can, we could put it up, where you have the Prime Minister saying enough is enough, and she's defending the use of armed officers in schools, saying law and order must be restored, and in a tone that she uses with a lot of the during the state of emergency, even with the situation in Venezuela, she's saying law-abiding students, in this case, have nothing to fear. Do you agree with that position, that as long as you don't do anything wrong, as long as you're not on the wrong side, these police officers should not bother you?
We are in agreement that at this particular stage in our history, that something needs to be done, even if it's drastic, as some people may categorize it. And the presence of the police or the law enforcement officers, we have no objection. And it's quite interesting that I got a call from a former national officer of tutor, and he indicated that this is not new, that in the early 1990s, he identified 1990 closely with the Honorable Minister of Education, Minister Panton, being in office at the time. And there were two schools that were identified, San Juan North Secondary and Malik Secondary. He told me a third, I can't remember at this time. But there were armed police officers, but they were concealed armed officers. And it was really at a down low. And they worked with these schools for a number of years, he was telling me. So it's not new. And thus, tutor does not have an objection or a difficulty with it. We are just saying that the presence of these officers must be done in a manner that is clear, and that all parties involved are sure of what are the duties, who they report to. And we have said, and we will continue to say, the presence of armed officers on the compound we have a difficulty with, because of certain reasons, and it'll take a while to go through those. We heard from reports that the Honorable Minister said that they will be stationed outside of the school. We are yet to confirm, but if they are stationed outside in terms of having those weapons, fine. If the ones inside have less lethal weapons, we will agree with that. Tasers, pepper spray, etc. But if you are looking at a deterrent, the presence is there internally and externally, because you have external forces that may want to breach the security of the school for whatever reason. And then there's the issue of gangs as well. How do we deal with it? But we are saying very clearly, we support, but it must not be a long-term measure. It should complement other interventions that will deal with, and that's...
And I'm glad you said that. One of the things I spoke to Walter Stewart about yesterday, he called for, I used the term, but he agreed with it, let's say a sunset clause of 6 months, where we go back after 6 months and look at it and evaluate and decide what is needed. What do you think about that?
Any good policy would have a period of evaluation, and coming out of the evaluation, how do we go forward? Your suggestion of 6 months might be great. We look, and 6 months is basically 2 terms, or a little less than 2 terms. Fine, let us evaluate. But we must get to the root cause of violence and indiscipline, crime and criminality. We've said in the past, the school is a microcosm of the society. It is part of the community. And if we have to deal with, because these students are coming out of the community into the schools, and we really must bring some semblance of normalcy to the sacredness of our schools. Our schools are centers of learning, and that's sacred. That's sacred to us and to the occupants of the compound. And we must find some way. So while the government, non-governmental institution, faith-based, community-based, and all other institutions that can influence on this, while we are dealing with it, the presence of the officers at some of the schools that need it can be a deterrent. And we will support, and again, I'm saying it must not be and should not be a long-term solution. And I'm because glad we have other support as well, which we can talk about.
Well, let's talk about it, because I know you did say that you had another meeting coming up on Thursday, but some of the things I'm hearing, you still have a lot of questions, and it makes me wonder if you feel that you were adequately involved in the decision making or in the making of this decision. Were you adequately informed and a part of the decision, you think?
Let me say things could be better. We could have played a greater part due to our experience being on the ground. Now, I must say, the Honorable Minister of Education came from the system. He was a teacher, principal, and had other influences, both at his religion and so on. So he knows what takes place at the level of the school and the education system. Hence, we are confident that he will make the decisions that are necessary for the betterment of the education system. And as such, we placed a lot of confidence, and we work with the Honorable Minister. But I have to say, on the other hand, if we see something that's going on toward, we will not hesitate to bring it to his attention, to the government's attention, and to the ministry's attention, because we have been fair in our dealings with whichever administration. But yes, there should be more consultation, because this is a big decision, and this is something that has brought out a lot of discussions, emotions as well too. It's an emotional thing to have presence of police officers. And as I said in my previous interview, if we have reached to this state in our society, then we have to step back and see that it's an indictment of our society. And we need to take stock and really look at putting things in place, getting to the root causes, and not just dealing with symptoms.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we don't actually step back and say, how did we get here? As opposed to a lot of things is what we're going to do now, but how did we get here? And I think if you take that look back, you really do find maybe we might have skipped a step somewhere, and we need to look back. I know we spoke about it a little while ago. There are elections coming up for tutor. I'm not going to ask you about your plans or anything like that, but elections are always exciting times in any organization. How is your organization preparing for the upcoming election?
Okay, so within tutor has elections every 3 years. It's a trimester. And let me say, our constitution does not allow for an individual to have 2 consecutive terms in office. So persons will be statute barred from going back up for election. And that is, when you say statute barred, you cannot go in one position for 2 terms and then go for another position in 2 terms. If you are in consecutive terms in office, whichever position, you are not eligible to go back up. And tutor's elections is October 14th of this year. What I want to say is I want to urge all our members who are eligible to vote to please vote, because we have the ballot boxes actually going to schools. So you have the opportunity to vote and exercise your franchise to vote. If you believe in individuals fulfilling certain positions, then that's your right to vote. We have all except the first vice president. The first vice president is unopposed, but all the other positions, president, second vice president, third vice president, treasurer, general secretary, we all have candidates for those positions. And so by the end of October, we will see what the elections generate.
Martin Lumpkin, thank you so very much for your time. And we'll be on you. We'll probably check in on you on Thursday again to find out how those consultations went with the minister.
It's
Thanks
in
very
the
much.
afternoon, so probably Friday.
For Friday, all right, I'll mark it down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Martin Lumpkin, from the tutor, the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association. We take a quick break and we take a look back at yesterday's first day of school.